So I wanted to do a quick video on the Flexifoil camera Kite. Now I actually saw this on my way back from holiday on Facebook. They were advertising a one-day sale for £147 with a 90-day no quibble unconditional returns. Try it and fly it and return it. And the normal price was £399, which seemed a lot. But when I downloaded the manual, it was clear that it comes with a one-axis stabilizer. So this is the one-axis stabilizer. So this basically will hold the camera level however the mount moves. So I thought, well, that's worth something on its own. And Flexifoil, I've flown 4-line Flexifoil kites for many years. I've got a bullet and I think 2 bullets, a 1.5 metre and a 3.5 metre, and they're fantastic quality kites. So I thought, well, to try it and see how it goes. I was really interested because I've flown quadcopters with cameras on for many years. I've flown kites, and I thought, well, there are places where a kite would actually be quite convenient to use for video or stills. When I first looked at the Facebook ad, it's not very clear, but I was thinking I could use this for video and for stills. So that's what I bought it for. So it arrived and you get this wonderful box with all this stuff in, this beautiful rucksack, protective gloves, a ground stake, this amazing huge reel, which is an absolute work of art, which has got a it's just a huge, all it's aluminium on. It's got a lovely dual bearing line guide. It's got this thumb brake so you can spool it out, big chunky handle, and it's got a shoulder strap so you can strap it to you, which is really nice, which scared me a little bit when it arrived because it was much larger than I expected, and I thought, am I going to be able to fly this safely? It also comes with protective gloves, which was new to me for kites, but I thought, oh well, I'll try it. It comes with an instruction manual, which is very detailed, so I went through that, and I've tried it today. And to be fair, I think this is designed for kite enthusiasts who love flying kites, have many kites, and when they go out for the day, they could take this with them. And if the conditions were correct and they've flown other kites and they wanted to try and get some photos, they could fly this kite and put a camera on it and it'll get you some photos. And I think for that market, it probably would be ideal. I was looking at it from the standpoint of, can I use this to take aerial photos or video, aerial video mainly, and it really isn't suitable for that, and I'll explain why. Okay, so the way the camera connects to the kite, it connects through this one-axis gimbal, which has been rebranded Flexifoil. This clips onto this mount, which is quite awkward to clip into. And then you have to line this up on this against this carbon spar, and then loop this bungee around the back, and that's to hold it from flapping, it says in the instructions. So then you have to hold the camera vertical and hold the button down, which is slightly fiddly to get to. I can put it there. There you go. So you hold that down for 1 second, and then a light comes on the other side there, but there's no beeps, and that then is stabilising. So if this moves, the camera will stay flat in this axis. Now the issue is that obviously when the kite's moving around, the camera just bounces around with the kite. So whilst this gimbal should be holding it level, when I was flying the kite was relatively still in the air, and yet the pictures were taken every 5 seconds and point in completely different directions across about a 45-degree arc. So what you get is sort of random photos around where you're aiming for. The other issue is because the bridle is in front of this point of the camera, as it's bouncing around, quite a lot of the pictures have got this line in front, so you would then have to crop them. Now I use the GoPro Hero 5 in linear picture mode, so that takes out a lot of the fisheye distortion. So I could just crop those angles out, but it makes it very difficult to take a specific photo. So this would be perfect if you love flying kites and you want to fly this kite with a camera on it for a bit of fun and see what you get, then that would work really well. If you want a specific photo, for example, say you wanted a picture of a stately home or a monument or a nice shot along the beach with a kite surfer going past, you have no control over where the camera's pointing at all. And the other big issue with it is because of the way this hangs, you have only two options really. So if I pop this way round, if the kite is flying downwind, the camera is pointing just, I would say, 30 degrees to the left of the lines. Now, whilst it does bounce around a bit, so actually you'll get photos from about straight down the lines to about 50 degrees. That is sort of where it's supposed to be aiming. Now, you can mount the camera the other way round. So you could pull the bungee off. Obviously, you'd have to land to do this. Take the camera off, then you could spin this round. You can hook this back on. So now you've got it back on the other way round. So now, when you're flying the kite, the camera will naturally hang roughly 30 degrees to the right of the lines. So if you're flying it downwind, it's going to be to this section. Now again, it's going to bounce around, so you're actually going to get pictures somewhere between straight down the line and off slightly further to the right. But effectively, you've got no control to point the camera any other way. So if you wanted to film behind the kite, there's no way to do that. If you wanted to film, you know, at an angle backwards from the lines, there's no way to do that. Now, what I don't understand is I've flown 4-line kites from Flexifoil, which are very controllable because you've got 4 lines. You can move them up and down in the sky, left to right, and you can hold them in position fairly accurately and fairly easily. Now, what I don't understand is why, instead of designing a new kite and all of this gubbins, why they didn't just make a GoPro mount. Now, this stabiliser, to be honest, I don't think is actually useful because the camera is bouncing around so much anyway. Holding the camera sort of semi-level is really not that much of a thing. So the other issue really is the strength of wind. So this, they say, flies from 8-mile-an-hour wind to 20-mile-an-hour wind. Now, there's a lot of days where it's not going to be quite windy enough, or perhaps too windy, which again confused me. The kite, I mean, today I think was about perfect. It was probably about 10 or 12 miles an hour wind. And whilst it flies, it's quite flappy and it moves around a lot. Now, I've flown 4-line Flexifoil kites. I have a blade 1.5 and a 3.5. And to me, they will be much more suitable for this because they've got 4 lines. You can position them in the air and hold them steady. You can move them up and down. They're much more controllable. And so I would have made a harness. If I was Flexifoil, I don't think this single axis gimbal is actually very useful. I would have had a harness to attach to a 4-line kite where the camera hangs down on a pole so that it is effectively stabilised by gravity, and then I'd have a mount on the pole where you could point the camera in any direction. So you could point it behind the kite, to shoot back from the kite, forward, left, right, or anywhere in between. And you could quite easily have that then adjustable so it could point down or at angles or straight out. And then if you had the pole protruding further down, it would give it some crash protection. So that would make more sense to me. And you could then use different size 4-line kites depending on the wind. So I've got a blade 1.5 and a 3.5, and with those I cover pretty much sort of probably 5-mile-an-hour wind up to probably 40-mile-an-hour wind, and you could hold the camera on that. Also for landing this was quite exciting, which is fine if you're playing with a kite, but when there's a camera attached to it, some people will be nervous. I mean, I'm not too worried about this tatty old Hero 5, and it's pretty well protected, but I'm sure a lot of people would be nervous about flying a kite with a camera on it. And a 4-line kite, you can back it into the ground much more controllably. So that, I think, would probably make more sense to me. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing this, because I think for its intended audience, which is kite enthusiasts that want to take pictures for fun, I think it will probably work really well. But as a sort of all-purpose photographer's tool, I don't think so. I hope that's useful. And any comments, please add them below, or questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.